Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I am your host, Haley Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. Today, I have a great business episode all about how to fast-track your business growth. My guest today is Kim Breiland. She is a consultant and business strategist. So one thing to note here is that fast-tracking your business growth or accelerating your business growth is not a shortcut, but instead it's Kim's framework where she has all of the tools that you really need to grow your business all in one place. I hear this all the time with people who want to start podcasts where they Google how to start a podcast and are met with an abundance of information, and not in a good way, like in an overwhelming way. And it's the same with business. So if you are thinking about starting a business or thinking about how are you going to scale a business, it can be really overwhelming. So this episode is all about actionable tips on how to get all the information you need to grow your business. We also talk about the importance of showing up consistently, having a strategy in place before you start your business, and as you scale, adjusting that strategy. We also talk about vanity metrics. So if you've heard of people who say, oh, I can't start my podcast, I only have 1,000 followers, who's gonna listen? Or, oh, I can't make a sale yet because I only have 200 followers on Instagram, like no one's gonna see me as the expert. These are vanity metrics that do not matter in the grand scheme of business. Of course, it's easier to sell or get clients when there's more people looking at your stuff. But if the right people are looking, you can still make sales. Kim talks about her LinkedIn strategy and how she's made 5 figures from LinkedIn alone this year, just from showing up consistently with a strategy. She started this year with, I think she says, 175 followers, and now within just a couple months has gotten up to 3,000. So a little bit more about Kim. She is a consultant and brand strategist with an extensive expertise in brand building, organic growth strategies, attraction marketing, social selling, design and execution of repeatable sales systems, leadership skills, and team building. She supports brick-and-mortar, online, or hybrid business models using proven strategies to increase market share, visibility, and returns. If you have any questions about this episode or want to connect with either Kim or myself, all of our links are in the show notes. I would love to help you set up the podcast of your dreams, and I'm sure Kim would love to help you set up the business of your dreams. I just love speaking with other business women who really are here to build up the community and teach rather than gatekeep. So this is a great episode, and I can't wait for you to listen. Hey, Kim, thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I am so excited to be here. I love podcast guesting. I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
So if you want to start off by telling me about who you are, what you do, and kind of your journey from employee to boss.
Yes, I would love to. I have had such a winding journey, Haley. It's been incredible. I started off in the PR marketing space. I worked for an Ivy League university. I had one of the best jobs in the world, but I didn't think that I could do that and be a mom. It was very important, which hindsight, totally could have done it. But, everything happens for a reason. And so I ended up going back to school and I taught for a few years. And that didn't really fit my personality. My students were amazing. I loved them, but it just didn't feel right for me. And so when I had my third baby about 5 years ago, I decided to transition out of teaching and I started working I was approached by a high school friend to work part-time at a startup. She has a tech startup. And I was supposed to be just social media management, like part-time. I had like the marketing background and the classroom background. And so she loved that I could bring that to the table for her business. But then very, very quickly, I ended up kind of getting involved into so many things in the business. And I actually ended up helping them launch, run, and grow over a year period. And I exited as their CMO. So what happened was they started having success, and people just started noticing what I was doing for them. And I kind of started just freelancing here and there and helping people out. And then before I knew it, I kind of was like, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to create my own business. And, I did spend time as a life and business coach because I wasn't quite sure. I didn't have the confidence, honestly. In the beginning, I was, oh, well, people are going to be like, where is this coming from? Why is she, just with my background, I was too worried about what others thought. And so I tried, working with all different people. I had amazing clients. I built a super successful business. But then the more I looked at what I was doing, and you'll come to hear, like most people say, niche down. When I started looking at all the clients I was working with, most of them were entrepreneurs. And it was not intentional at all. Like I didn't, mean to attract that form of client, but that's what I did. And so about a year and a half ago, I decided to really step back and look at, what am I good at? What do I feel confident doing? What results have I gotten for people? Because that's most important. They can like you to pieces, but can you get them the result that they need? And if the answer is yes, then you go for it. And so I kind of repositioned myself, updated my website. I got real serious about showing up online and spreading my message and connecting with people that really needed what I had to offer. And so I look back now, and it was a crazy, like winding journey from corporate or / 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship. But I really do think that every aspect of what I've done so far it makes me better for what I do now. And it's been a wild ride, but it's been great.
Yeah, that's awesome. From part-time to CMO is quite a transition. So,
well, and let me tell you, they didn't exactly announce it probably the way that they should have. And I'll never forget summer 2020. I was on a call with the team and then this marketing agency they were hiring. And my employer, the owner of the company, she like introduced me as CMO, and I was like, wow. I was like, well, that's awesome. So,
yeah.
I mean, life is crazy. And I really do think that it takes a spark. I think it takes a certain individual, almost, I hate to say it, I feel like it takes a person who's restless. And I know that sounds crazy, but I feel like because I was always restless, it got me to where I was here, because this is where I was meant to be. But I don't think people necessarily start off thinking like, oh, I should start my own business. I mean, I guess maybe some people do, but I didn't. I just had this like kind of inner like restlessness, like I'm meant to do something else, or I'm meant for more, or I'm meant just for something. And so it was a winding journey that was really, it was just wild. Like it was really fun.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's quite a journey. And thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's really powerful to hear kind of how you came into what you do now. And I was looking on your website, and I saw one of the main things that you help people with is to fast track or accelerate their business growth, which I think when you're starting a business is top of mind. You're like, how am I going to go from $0 to whatever my income goal is? So do you want to talk us through kind of the first steps you take when you're working with a new client or a new business?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little background, Founder Fast Track is not a shortcut. I like to make that very clear. It's not a shortcut. It is basically a 5-step method for understanding the foundational things that are needed in every business to be a timeless, profitable, sustainable business. The reason I created it is because I was working predominantly one-to-one, high-level consultancy, and most early stage founders cannot afford a high-level consultant who's going to handhold them and walk them through the super important steps. And so what happens is they end up piecemealing it together, a million freebies, a ton of time on Google, right? Or YouTube, or inexpensive courses, or, all these things. And it kind of, I feel as though it leaves them feeling very frustrated, very confused. Not that all those things aren't wonderful, they are, but in the beginning, and it's funny because I have somebody that I worked with many years ago, she's like, just give me a blueprint, give me a step-by-step plan for growing. And so when I say accelerate your growth or quicker or faster, it's getting founders up to speed without having them have to go to 5 million different locations for their information. So it's a way, So it's a way to come, to join a program. It is a way to understand exactly what creates revenue, because there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet that is fluff. There are people that are showing up so confidently speaking on the internet. I mean, one example I love to give is 2 weeks ago, I was on Instagram, and this amazing woman, she's confident, she's just sharing her experience, but she was talking about KPIs, and what she was talking about was not a KPI. And so these early stage founders, it was just leaving. For me, I'm like a very ethical person. And for me, I was like, this isn't right. There needs to be a program out there that's simple, effective, straightforward. I'm not saying I'm not going to do the work for you. I'm not going, it's not promising easy, but I'm promising a high value step-by-step method that I don't think you can find everywhere, because everybody tends to go like super niche. So they can help you grow on LinkedIn, or they can help you grow on Instagram, or they can help you with your marketing or your sales or your brand positioning, right? And it's like you're trying, but really you have to pull it all together. And so my hope is where the acceleration comes in, or the faster, quicker results, is because I'm giving them a way to create that effective strategy from the beginning.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful part about hiring a coach or a specialist to help you with anything. Like, I help people start podcasts, and I was just talking to someone about starting theirs, and I was kind of walking them through the process. And she was like, this sounds so much easier than I thought, because Google was so overwhelming. And I was like, I know, there's so much out there. It's crazy. And so
Absolutely.
definitely, I love hiring coaches. I love having, a mentor or someone to help me fast track my way to success, because
Yeah.
you've gone through it. You've done it for
Yeah.
yourself. You've done it for other people. And so you really have a lot to share when it comes to this. What do you think is one of the most common pain points or struggles that most of your clients are feeling when they first come to you?
Sure. So I guess it depends on the stage of their business. If they are middle stage, the definite thing is brand positioning and understanding and finding their voice and finding the right copy, like copywriting, like investing in learning tried and true copywriting methods, testing things out to see what resonates. That's probably the biggest struggle I see in the beginning, because most business owners, if not all, they grow their business, or they start their business because they're good at the technical work of their business. So for example, you're great at podcast, producing. Okay. But that doesn't mean, all the ins and outs and backgrounds of running a business, because those are two separate things. Right. And so early stage founders are usually just need help pulling it all together. And typically the messaging piece is what's the most hard. Well, it's brand positioning and messaging, because if your brand positioning is off, meaning what's the specific need you fill in the market, and how are you different? Like, what's your key differentiators? If those things are not crystal clear, you're going to have trouble marketing your services. And to go back to your point and what you said earlier about working with people, I never in my wildest dreams would think about starting a podcast on my own. I have seen the tremendous work that goes into it. I have seen the tremendous strategy that goes into it. I have seen the reason why so many podcasts fail to really take off. And just to speak to what you do, whoever's listening to this, don't even think about trying to start one on your own without some level of support from a professional, like yourself, and people who that really do it in and day out.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I love that.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And I mean, a podcast is just part of business, but then thinking about people who are trying to start an entire business on their own. When I first started my business about 3 years ago, I had a degree in journalism. I was like, I know nothing about business. And so hiring someone to help me was definitely like the first step. And it was the most helpful step to actually get me to move forward in that.
Awesome. That's so good to hear, because I do feel that the industry is taking a bit of a beating, like business coaches and things like that, because I think unfortunately there were some people out there that were really great at selling, but they didn't really have the foundation or the skills to back up what they were proposing they could help people do. And I've seen people get really jaded by it, and they don't know who to trust, and they're not sure if a person can get, can truly get them results. And I think that's twofold. Number one, the person, the coach of any kind, business, podcasting, whatever it may be, whatever you're putting out, just make sure that that's what you can deliver on the back end, right? Or for your clients. And then the other thing is just from the client perspective, understanding that the coach is only one piece. It's a partnership. So it's when you hire somebody, it's not because they're going to do it for you. I mean, unless you are hiring like a marketing agency to do it, like done for you services. But typically when you're growing and when you're doing something, it's just as much, it's a dual responsibility. So one person has the knowledge, the expertise, and the ability to support you and hold you accountable, but then it still takes you putting in the hard work. And that's why, unfortunately, most people don't see the results that they desire, because it's hard at the beginning. It is. And the more you can strengthen your mindset and understand that messy action gets results, doing marketing research to get more feedback on your brand position so you can deliver and really understand what the market needs. Those are the things that are going to accelerate your results in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to something that you said about, your unique brand position and building that. Before we got on this call, we were talking a little bit about how so many people are worried about that follower number. And they're like, oh, I can't start my business. I have 100 followers, or, oh, no one's going to see me as the expert. I have whatever number of followers. And so I think I would love for you to talk more about that and kind of how business owners can get over that and just start building their credibility online.
Absolutely. Well, you just said the key word right there. You have to just start. You have to start messy, start knowing that it's not going to resonate. What you just described are vanity metrics. Vanity metrics do not build a business. Okay. So when somebody's worrying about likes, comments, and follower count, they're actually worried about building an influencer business, not a business, not a actual, whether they consider themselves a small business owner, an entrepreneur, a founder. I mean, there's a million different labels that we can use, but when you are growing online, the follower count, what I tell my clients, I want to see quality followers, your ideal client following you. I don't want to see large numbers. I want the quality to matter, because growing a business on social media is entirely a different strategy than being an influencer. And so, I'll give myself as an example on LinkedIn. I always thought of LinkedIn as a stuffy 9-to-5 hangout for like corporate executives. First of all, so not that. It's amazing. Show up there, everybody. It's so much fun. It's so motivating and educational. Secondly, I started in, I want to say late January, early February of this year. I committed to showing up 5 days a week, 1 hour a day. I'm now at over 3,000 followers, and I've generated 5 figures just from LinkedIn. That's not including the other ways that I grow my business. Somebody might look at my profile and think, oh, she only has 1,000. Oh, she only has 2,000. Oh, she only has 3,000. I started at 175 followers in January. And the point of this message is, when you have the right strategy, when you know your brand position, you're very clear on what you offer and the solution you provide, and you're having quality connections and conversations, you could make a ton of money with less than 1,000 followers. And that's something. And then the other thing to really make sure you understand is, I know a lot of people with tens of thousands of followers who are making barely anything, because they either A, are an influencer and they just don't understand how the whole thing works, or B, they have a lot of followers, but they just don't understand business growth principles. So really don't pay attention to those vanity metrics when you're starting out, and really make sure that when you're showing up online, as long as you're staying true to who you are and the business you're building and the solution you provide, you might have to post to crickets for a while. You might have to deal with 0 likes, 0 comments for a while before you become top of mind for the right people, and the right people start engaging and following you and engaging with your content. Because I will tell you, when I look back at predominantly my consulting clients, like my high level one-to-one clients, when I look back most of them came out of nowhere. I had no idea they were following me. I had no idea they were watching me. It was just one day they booked a consult, and then we get on the consult and they're telling me all this stuff like, wow, I'm like, you've been following me for months. You've been seeing all my, so even though you might be not getting the likes or the comments, people are watching. So do your best. Remember that taking that messy action is what's going to get you clarity faster and connect you with your ideal clients. And those are the things that accelerates growth.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk to you about LinkedIn strategy all day, but I'll let people message you to talk about that too, because those are
Okay.
really like amazing results. Like,
Yeah.
and I love what you said about how, building a business is different than building an influencer business. I mean, no one really needs like millions of followers to be successful. I interviewed
No.
someone on my podcast who, she used to be a client of mine, always struggled to grow her following on Instagram, and then went on TikTok and blew up like 20,000 followers basically overnight. And something she said
Amazing.
on that episode was she was having this big mindset block of, how do I have 20,000 new followers and still can't make a sale? And I was
Oh,
like,
interesting.
again, it was just like in her strategy. So once she adapted that, then she was able to make a sale. Like, things had to
Oh,
change. And so the
wow.
number of followers
Mm-hmm.
truly does not equal
Means
sales.
nothing. In fact, I don't know if you know Brock Johnson from Instagram and TikTok. Do you
Yeah.
know him? He
Hmm.
was very public facing about the fact that he burned down his TikTok. He could have adjusted his strategy. He could have, tweaked some things because he had like I forget what the follower count was, but on TikTok, he had an insane following. And instead of tweaking the strategy, he just shut down the whole account and started from scratch because he said, I had a huge following, but I had no sales. And so it's really two very different things. And there's sales psychology, there's, marketing, there's buying triggers, there's so much to know. And that's where I think it becomes overwhelming for a lot of early stage founders, is that there's just so much to know. And in the beginning, you have to figure out, what are the absolute things I have to know? And then what are the things that I can not worry about right now? Block out and just get on. That's where the name comes from. Like founder fast track, get on track. Because like, I'm sure you see this in the work that you do. There's so many common mistakes that if you could just educate people and try to hold them accountable and support them in blocking out the noise, they will get to where they need to be so much faster.
Yeah. And there's so many things that I see on your website that you talk about in your program. And one of the ones I want to dive into a little bit more that connects this topic is building lifelong fans or followers of your
Yeah.
brand. That's
Yes.
way more valuable than someone who follows you just randomly, right? As someone
Yes.
who like
Yes.
actually watches. And like you said, you're making sales from people who have been following you for who knows how long, right?
Right. Right.
So,
Exactly. Literally. Like I had one girl come out of nowhere and signed up for my one-to-one consulting back in end of May. And I thought she had connected with me through a mutual friend of ours. And she's like, oh, no, so-and-so. And it was my brand photographer. And I was like, and I said, well, that was months ago. I'm like, that was 9 months ago. And so it's, you don't know. And the other thing to remember is there's all different types of buyers. Some buyers are going to be quick to make a decision, and they're going to, like, for example, I had a client in Founder Fast Track who joined my live launch in August halfway through it. So like, let's say Wednesday or Thursday. And then she binged all the days that, I had done so far, showed up, booked a consult. And then in less than a week, she became a client of Founder Fast Track. Now that is amazing. And I would love a million of those kind of clients, but that's not typically what happens. It usually it takes time for for you as the owner, as the business owner, to build that know, like, and trust, because trust is what turns to buying. So, you can be fun, engaging, entertaining, but if the follower doesn't have trust in what you're offering, they're never going to buy. And the other thing that people need to understand, going back to your question about the brand positioning and creating loyal fans of the brand, in the beginning, a lot of business owners, I think, offer too much, or they're constantly pivoting their offers. And so there's a lack of brand awareness. There's a lack of understanding. And that a confused buyer always says no, right? You hear that phrase all the time. And it's because if you're not consistently showing up and doing the same things and always building brand awareness around what you do, then people are just going to be confused, or they're just not going to have clarity, and they're not going to buy. And so it's your job as the business owner to create that for them. And what used to be 7 touch points or 7 times they had to hear something for it to be top of mind, that's now up over 20, which is crazy. So we are going to feel as the business owner like we're repeating ourselves on, again and again and again. But the reality is only 6% of your audience online, like on social media, sees your things regularly. So you have to just keep repeating yourself and getting that message out there.
Yeah. That's something that I think a lot of new business owners don't realize. They're like, oh, I talked about this last week. Like, no one wants to hear it again.
Right. No, they have to. Yeah. Yes. And what's so funny is that so there's something called the spotlight effect. And it's basically the humans think that everybody's eyes are on them all the time, and that everybody's watching every move they make, when in reality, it's something super small. Like I forget the percentage, but under 20% of people are actually watching us as closely as we think. So when we're afraid to put out the same post across multiple channels, nobody's going to notice. And if they do, oh, well, they get the information again and again because you're passionate about what you're doing and you want to get it out there and you want to get the message out there. I think that, just to touch on this real quick, I think that's another thing that I see I don't know if holding back is the right way of saying it, but just that could cause some frustration for business owners, is that they are comparing their now to another business owner's year 10. Okay. So we see early stage business owners that are trying to show up on every platform and do the live launching and do the emails and a million things, because they're watching somebody else in their industry who's much further along and has greater success, and maybe a team of 20 people. And so if you're trying to show up the way they are, number one, you're not staying true to your brand position. And then number two, you don't have a team and you're going to burn yourself out. So, really just keeping those key points in mind, it also accelerates your growth.
Absolutely. And so building up this network of people who are paying attention, they're engaging with you, they are actual people who want to learn from you, is so important before you even really launch anything. I think that know, and trust is crucial to having any sort of successful launch. Yeah. So when someone comes to you and they're like, "Ooh, I have this big business idea, but never once have I nurtured my audience," what kind of steps do you tell them to take?
Yeah, they don't like me in this stage. They do not want to hear when I tell them that you want to serve without selling, without any strings attached, for a good 3 to 4 months minimum. That's minimum. I know a lot of people who start building their brand online for a good year before they start selling or other than asking somebody to join their newsletter, which I think is completely, you're just going to add value, right? So that is totally fine. But I think, or subscribing to a podcast or a video, those kind of things where you're asking them to take action, but there's no transaction. Okay. And you're giving them value. And so those things are okay. But yeah, typically minimum 3 to 4 months of sheer value. It's called the reciprocity bank. You're just giving value without expecting anything in return. And then typically, just human psychology, the more you give to them, and if you're able to give them wins for free, then when you do provide an offer someday, they're much more likely to either buy from you or refer to you. So those are important things for sure.
Yeah, because I think if someone comes across your profile and it's just all selling, they're not going to be able to connect with you or really learn anything. And so I always think about it is my content bingeable? If someone wants to learn about what I do, or any business really, is it bingeable? Can I scroll and get so much value that I'm like, yes, this is the person I want to buy from? And so that's a great kind of time frame, 3 to 4 months. That's great advice there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that people don't hate me for saying it, but yeah, it's really important. And then even once you do, and I love what you said about where your mindset is at about, I want somebody to be able to binge all of my content. That is so smart and it's so important because it does take time and people want to hear your tone and get a sense for you and the value and your knowledge and all those things. And so, yeah, that's brilliant what you just said. And then on top of it, once you do provide the value, even when it comes time to sell, you want to make sure you're not selling all the time. I mean, we're talking like only 25% of the time. The rest of the time you're nurturing your audience, you're providing value, you are strategically helping others in your network. All these things that don't correlate necessarily directly to dollars really do provide, that's really what leads to greater revenue growth. So yeah, you touched on something really important.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's how you've seen a lot of success on LinkedIn, right? Just nurturing
Mhm.
your audience there. And LinkedIn
Yeah.
is so like relationship based, really.
Oh, so much so. And it's so, it's so respectful and
Mhm.
professional.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that aspect. I think that's why I had trouble because I was in business for many years. It was all word of mouth referral, referral based. So I only started dipping my toe into social media simply because I wanted to grow my group program, not my one-to-one consultancy. And so it's been, I'd always been what's the word, like a not consumer, but I would go on and I would observe what was going on online, but I didn't feel the need to put myself out there yet. And so the past 2 years of putting myself out there and learning all the things I've learned has been invaluable. And I'm going to give Instagram a go again. I myself just purchased a course to like better understand that platform. I still show up all the time on LinkedIn. It's my preferred platform. And I think when you're new, just don't be afraid to try different things. Don't be afraid to mess up a little bit or to feel a little foolish. I think you just have to take action. And with action always comes clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
love that little quote right there.
Yeah.
That, I mean, is so true. We're always learning. Congrats on buying that new course. I love
Yeah.
continuous learning. I think
Mhm.
everything is changing on the internet so often.
Ooh, this year especially, Haley, let me tell you, like I've been doing this almost 5 years, and
Yeah.
it was as if January 2023, somebody flipped a switch, and
Right.
I'm not even kidding you, it's been so different.
Hmm.
And I see what's working and I see what's not working. And I think most people are not aware of that. Like they're not yet aware. It hasn't fully caught up yet.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example. So fall of last year, I said to my husband, I think I need to start really taking SEO seriously. And I mean, my website was SEO optimized, all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't really being active. I wasn't actively engaging in an SEO strategy in my business. And so I said to him, I'm getting the sense this is going to be really, really important. PR and SEO. So this right here, a podcast interview, that's PR. That's for any business owner listening. Podcast guesting is one of the most beautiful, amazing things you can do. And those two things I started realizing, I'm like, this is going to become really important, a really important piece of the strategy. And then back in January, I signed up to work with a coach all this year in her mastermind. And about a month ago, she put out a podcast and she said, I used to only recommend certain people worry about SEO, but now I'm recommending it for everybody. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I sensed that back in fall of 2022. And so to go back to your point at the beginning of our conversation, this is why it's invaluable to find the right person and to work with somebody who truly understands whatever it is you're trying to grow in your business, whether it be your podcast or your business itself, is that you as the business owner, it's not your job to keep all of this in mind, right? If you are, let's say, a photographer, or you're a tradesperson, or you're a coach, or you're a high level expert consultant in some way, or a hairdresser even, or a makeup artist, or I could go on and on and on and on with this huge list of service-based industries where their main focus, or the thing, like they're not their main focus, but they're not experts in podcasting and guesting or creating their own. They're not an expert in understanding all the ins and outs of growing a business. And that's where the help becomes invaluable. But yet people are so afraid to ask for help. They want to try to do it themselves. And I think that's what slows down growth is when you try to do that or go too long on your own.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for walking us through that too.
Yeah.
For anyone who is listening and is like, oh my gosh, I need to work with Kim, how do you help people? Who do you help? I saw that you work with brick and mortars, online business, and hybrid. Can you
Yeah.
tell us more about like the offers that you have and who you help?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. Yeah, I would love to. So I predominantly was only doing one-to-one consultancy, and I've worked with all different businesses and all different industries. But I started noticing just in the market, I was seeing just through my networking efforts, I was hearing people that were really burned. They would be spending $2,000-3,000 for one-to-one consulting work or business coach, and they weren't getting any results, and they were just frustrated. And now they've spent this money with no results. And I thought, okay, when you're an early stage founder, you don't have $3, 4, 5, 6, $10,000 to spend on a 6-month mastermind. And so I started to go to work a couple months ago. Well, actually, probably this time last year. And I created a program called Scale to CEO. And I had my first beta group of people, of founders, all different industries, and they were brilliant. But I was shocked because even though they had seen some success in their business, even though they had had a couple of years been in business, they weren't yet ready for Scale to CEO. They weren't yet ready to understand how to build a team, how the strategy and the systems that you have to have in place to lead that team. And so it made me go back to the drawing board in January of this year and create a different program that was more pared down to meet business owners where they were, because it was almost like you can easily grow to the multiple 6 figures mark on complete referrals without understanding how to grow a business properly, timelessly, but also online. And so that's when Founder Fast Track was kind of born. And I went through 3 rounds of beta groups to really understand how the program needed to be different from my Scale to CEO and one-to-one consultancy, which is for more advanced business owners. So after a couple of months, I've worked really hard. My clients in the program have been amazing. Their feedback has been invaluable. And so now I am fully promoting and talking with people about Founder Fast Track and hoping that this program is both the best business education they can find that brings the whole growth strategy together, but that's actually affordable for them and meets them where they are.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, from this conversation, you shared so much value. So I can only imagine how much value is in your programs.
Thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So, Kim, the last question I ask all of my guests to start wrapping up the episode is I would love it if you could share 3 action steps that the audience can take to move forward with their business, their life, whatever it is. Just, action steps that they can instill today.
Yeah. So the number one thing I tell all clients, if you start to feel overwhelmed, press pause and remember that the number one revenue generating activity you can do is to just meet people and have conversations. Okay. Because it's the touch points that generate sales. So the more touch points you have with people, the more you can generate sales. So you don't worry about what your aesthetic looks like. Don't worry about a website. Don't worry about it. Meet people, tell them who you are and how you help, and make offers. It's that simple. And, that would be step 1. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling frustrated, stop worrying about doing all the 40 million things. Just meet people and make offers to them and really, get visible. That's what it's about. The second thing that I would recommend is that they get very disciplined with their time management, and I specifically mean literally blocking out their time on their calendar and blocking out breaks in their day, blocking out when are you going to, call it quits on your day, like let's say it's 5 o'clock or something like that, and then go enjoy your life. The more you can block out time to enjoy your life, the more focused and energy you're going to have to show up in your business, even though in the beginning you're going to want to be in your business like 24/7. Don't do it. Fight the urge to do that. So that's number 2. Number 3 is remember that not everywhere or not every networking event is going to pay dividends. So be real strategic with how you're spending your time and who you're spending your time with. I think that also accelerates growth as well. Like if you're just burning yourself out going to 5,000 networking events and not really going deeper into the relationships and finding the strategic power partners you need that are, complementary for your business, people can spend, can kind of waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 tips.
Those are great tips. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about today that maybe we haven't discussed yet?
So the only last thing I would love to share with everybody is I say, and if you go to my website, you'll see it. I say the best don't chase, they attract. And so in the beginning, you can kind of fall into the trap of just being so eager to grow your business that you become graspy for anybody that might want your offer or want your product or whatever it may be. But stay true to who you are and your mission and vision, and like really show up with great intention and knowledge, and be yourself, because you'll then attract the right people to you.
Thank you so much, Kim. Where can people connect with you?
Well, clearly I've said LinkedIn is probably my best place to connect with me. So it's just Kim Breiland. Last name is Breiland. My website's kimbreilandcoaching.com. I'm also going to start being better on Instagram. So if you want to follow me there, it's just Kim Breiland. It's awesome. At Kim Breiland. Yeah.
Perfect. I will put all of those in the show notes. And again, thank you so much. I've loved this conversation and really appreciate you taking the time to share all of this with us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to, Haley. And I'm just so appreciative that you have me on this podcast. It means the world to me. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and